Welcome to the Verdict Sports Show. I'm your host, Jacob Verdin. Hope everybody's having a good Monday morning. We're going to be recapping the spring game here today, talking about some areas of concerns, some practice notes that we have for you, some positions that stood out from us, some things that you might have to work on, break down all those things. Talk about LSU versus Auburn, the whole 9 yards. We're going to open up the show first, though. Thoughts and prayers to the Lacey family, obviously with the tragic events that went on yesterday. I just wanted to take some time. Appreciate Kyron and all the things he done. It's a big deal, especially here at LSU. But he's a very talented kid. Had the opportunity to, have a great NFL career, and just to be a kid from Thibodeau to live your dream. It is impactful and it's inspiring. So, rest in peace to Kyron Lacey. Let's move into the spring game. So, all in all, he had a few injuries. You were without Caden Durham. He had his ankle get banged up, as Coach Kelly said, just talking about, monitoring him. Obviously, last year, he had the dislocated toes, and he had a couple of things that he had to watch. Excuse me. But Caden Durham had a couple of things that he had to monitor, right? He had some dislocated toes, had some potential, procedures done to fix that. I think it's smart to, watch over somebody like this and make sure he doesn't get banged up. Similar for Jacoby and Guillory, right? Off that Achilles, he's not 100% yet. There's no point in putting him in a situation to re-aggravate that and, potentially slow down his recovery period. Same thing with Destin Hill. They talked about a sprained ankle. I'd imagine it would be more toward, precautionary measures for that ACL. He's recovering from that. Trades Green, he kind of got rolled up on a little bit and he had to get subbed out. Coach Kelly was talking about the ankle and how he wanted to get back in there. He was fighting, he was competing, he was trying to, get back into the spring game, but he had to remind him of the situation. Just, you don't want any major injuries. You don't want any problems that are going to set you back, especially when, the spring game's losing a lot of its luster already. It's turning into just, entertainment spectacle. And all in all, if you watch the highlights, it's a limited view. We couldn't film the second half. It was just a small portion of the practice that they wanted you to, have visible out there. So I wouldn't say that every single thing you saw was a complete, representation of what happened, and a complete representation of both teams. The offense kind of, struggled a little bit, but they had their moments as well, especially when the cameras are off. Kylan Billiard got his touchdown at the end to close the game off. And there was a couple of people that turned their heads. I'm not going to lie. That offensive side, it's growing. It's growing rapidly. I think the defense is as well. It's exponentially greater, obviously, with the transfer portal additions and the returning production that you've been able to keep. Now you've got, all this talk about the edges and the pressure and everything that has, really been lacking at LSU lately. Everybody's talking about the ability to get to the quarterback, the amount of disruption that the offensive line experienced. And I do think they stole the show. I think the edges, the D-line, great pieces. The defensive back room is where I'm going to tout, the most respect to right now. You got the most variety. You've got the most pieces. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that P.J. Woodland, I think he made his case for being a top DB. I think that obviously Mansour Delane is going to be a name that you see in there. Upon Mansour's arrival, everybody's rooming who he's going to be playing with. Who's that cornerback duo? At times you would think it'd be Ashton Stamps. There's a legitimate possibility for P.J. Woodland to get thrown into this rotation for what he's done through spring, for the interception he grabbed in the spring game, through the amount of competition, and just, how versatile I think he's been. That's one of your DBs that you really got to keep an eye on for sure. I'm not saying Ashton Stamps isn't going to get thrown out there, but now you got a multitude of DBs that you can trust and that you could put into the mix here. Even, Toviano got some shine at safety. I think he's going to be a real key player for LSU in that defensive back room. This is one of the areas that gives you confidence, at least in LSU being a contender, right? There's a lot of areas of concern that people can bring up, and we'll get to those later. But this would be one of the areas I think that LSU has to, really offer, especially when comparing them to other areas, especially when comparing them to teams of the past that are, LSU teams of the past. The DB depth hasn't really been at this point where you've got a lot of different combos that you can throw out there that are all starting caliber. Obviously, you can throw out combos and mix and match guys on your roster, but them being able to, keep a sustained level of play and actually, keep things up to the expectations of Corey Raymond and Blake Baker and so on and so forth. I think now you've got your best chance of doing that. And with the concerns, a lot of teams at this point, in the spring, especially, you're going to have concerns. You're not going to have a football team that just, walks in perfect, is 100% ready to go. And through fall, this is the same exact look, rotation, lineup, everything. There's going to be tweaks. There's going to be changes. This is exactly what the spring period's for, trying to find out who plays best together, who, plays best in certain situations, just mixing and matching and trying to figure that side of it out. And they did that a little bit, especially on the offensive side. And one of the key pieces that I think stood out to me the most, I'm going to say Juwan Johnson. You got a lot of people that you could talk about. You got Harlem Berry, you got Michael Van Buren. I'm going to focus on Juwan, especially with his performance, right? I think that he had a few key moments that really stuck out to me, from the RPOs to that little wildcat substitution formation that we talked about. You could use him in a lot of different ways. He could throw the damn ball. He could run the ball. He could probably run a route. You could do whatever you want when 8's on the field. That's a huge X factor. It's going to change up a lot of your personnel package. Is going to change up a lot of your play calling. It will open up the scheme for a variety of things. It's going to take a lot of pressure off of us, Meyer, in a sense where, everybody wants these quarterback design runs, or this quarterback to be able to break down the field and, make an extra 15 yards with his legs. Now you've got a potential piece that can do that without risking getting hurt, without risking getting banged up. That's kind of the double-edged sword you got to battle here in college football. But I think you can put him out there in damn near any role. Very versatile. I think he's still technically a running back if you're putting him out there in the backfield and having him run and, do these read options. It's still like he's in that room. We talked about him getting added into the quarterback room and if it was worth it, and how he still has to have a role, a key role as one of the most predominant athletes on this roster. We were trying to advocate for him getting some PT, but I think he's going to be able to get it. I think he's going to be able to earn it. I don't think a lot of people are going to be able to say much to keep him off the field. Juwan was hard to get down. He was all over the place. And like I said, there's a lot of creativity sitting here for Joe Sloan and Brian Kelly to be able to break down with the amount of talent that they got on this offensive side. It helps the running backs out too, because if Juwan's out there in the backfield, you can't just eye on one backer. You can't just focus on one guy. You can put them out in a split set. You can have Caden Durham on the other side as well. Just really keep them guessing. If you want to run, try to disguise it in a package like that. With Caden Durham being out though, I wanted to talk about that, just the chance that Caleb Jackson had to show off. And he looked good. He looked healthy. He looks like the Caleb Jackson that you've been anticipating. I want to talk about Harlem Berry, though. Harlem Berry took advantage of this opportunity. You get to run with the twos now, young buck. You want to make an opportunity, or you want to make your name known, your presence felt. This is how you do it. This is how you get into the race of being the backup running back here at LSU. Brian Kelly talked about he's for sure going to play as a freshman. Looked really good. I think he's the future of that room. You got JT Lindsay that's still trying to pull up here. The weight's going to be added for Harlem. I know everybody's going to say the same thing like they said with DJ Pickett. Oh, he's got to gain weight. Oh, he's got to hit the weight room. This is South Louisiana. If there's one thing you don't need to worry about people in South Louisiana, it's about eating and gaining weight. They know how to do it. They got a lot of options over here, and I feel like they're going to be perfectly fine. Harlem Berry, very key piece. They used him a lot in the passing game. They used him a lot in shorter areas, but I think just the overall athleticism that he brings to the table, I've said it, I'll say it again, reminds me of an Alvin Kamara, bro. Reminds me of somebody that is very hard to get down in open space, and he's going to be a piece that LSU is going to use, like Brian Kelly said, as soon as this season. Let's talk about Michael Van Buren. I think, going into this, they had some questions about how legitimate of a candidate he is to start, or just, the overall skill level of Michael Van Buren. What we got to see has been limited reps, and now you get to see him in the live action, and you get to see him versus the entire defense, and it's a live game film in Tiger Stadium, whole 9 yards, no more simulation. It's pretty much here. Preston Guy on X was keeping stats. He tweeted that Michael Van Buren had 2 passing touchdowns and went 6 for 7 in non-red zone drills. Pretty damn impressive, especially as the field shrinks with the red zone. Yeah, you got some options you can throw it up high to, but I think he did pretty good. I think he's got the mobility that everybody kind of has been looking for. But, one of my big takeaways here is LSU's quarterback room is back. It's deep. You got Colin Hurley that returned, so he's going to get thrown into the mix as well. LSU's really not a dire situation like you were when you had to move a running back to the quarterback room and really figure this out. But look, that was a blessing in disguise, because now I think you got to really see Juwan Johnson's ability, and now you got to really put him into a key role that they might not have thought about before. And I'm not saying that they didn't, but it'll be a little easier to blend it in here now. Real quick, before we talk about the areas of concern, all these different things, Coach Kelly did mention about being interested in potentially playing other teams in spring football. Now, I like this idea. And you saw Coach Prime at Colorado try to do it, and NCAA denied it, and they didn't support the idea. But I feel like this is how you bring legitimacy or just interest back to the spring game, to keep it active, to keep it engaging. I don't want to be that guy, but let's just say the spring game stays in this format for the next 2 to 3 years. It's not going to be around that much longer. It's going to be, the crowds are going to continue to get thinner and thinner. And I think that the interest level in this is just going to get, worse and worse. There's a lot of case in points that you can make here. It'll also 100% help with competition. It'll help bring the game together. I feel like, if your team like an LSU gets to play a Power 5 school in the spring period, maybe you don't have to go out and schedule such a tough damn week 1 game and try to cut your teeth that way. Just a thought. NFL does it, though. Good OTAs, training camps, things of that nature. I think it's something that you could definitely look towards coming to college football very soon. Let's talk about the areas of concern. I only got a couple. First one, offensive line. Obviously, everybody wants to talk about it. Let's bring it up. First thing I want to know here is that the offensive line rotation, it will be completely different come fall. And I'm not, promising it. I think that's my take, obviously. I'm going to just go on a limb and say that, clarify. But I don't think this is going to be the 5 that you see. And I think I'm going to compare it to 2022 under Brian Kelly. You got to keep in mind, you lost a lot of pieces to the NFL draft. 80% of your offensive line will be playing professional football on Sundays, to be exact. You returned one guy, and that one guy is in a position battle to determine if he's even going to return. So there's a real possibility that there is 100% new starting offensive line for LSU. It's going to take some time to figure out. And as of right now, you got no transfers that are in the lineup. Why? Are they proving their point? Proving their worth? Are they battling? Who knows? There's a lot of different rumors, a lot of different things that could be attributed to that. Definitely a clear battle going on at center here with Braylon Moore, DJ Chester. They were swapping in and out all spring game long. I'd imagine that DJ Chester would have the slight favorite, only because he's been in an all spring. He's been in this scheme another year. But even if DJ doesn't play center, I'd imagine he'd find his role in a guard spot. He's not going to have to worry about getting off the line. One of the things also I kind of want to point out about this, at least you've got a deep room. I mean, if you're in a situation here talking about position battles and, this rotation can change a lot, that means you've got guys. That means you've got a lot of pieces to be able to plug and play. For that, you're lucky, first off. Second, I think that this is a key indicator of the amount of talent and the future of LSU's offensive line. It's deep. It's bright. Brad Davis has put them in a situation to recruit and develop a lot of perennial talents. I'm going to trust him to put out the right concoction for LSU's offensive line. But like I said, it could be a similar period like 2022. You see 6 different offensive line combos through 6 weeks. Once you find your center, though, I think you can build around them and you get some type of consistency here, and you'll start to see this lineup lock in through fall. For the offense, yeah, I mean, they got some growth left. That's a good thing, though. I feel like there's an evenness to this LSU football team that really not a lot of people have been talking about. We reacted to some of the transfer portal news earlier on in the year, early January, maybe even late December, and we were just talking about how the defense getting all these pieces. They're in a legitimate spot to be the best side of the ball. They're in a legitimate spot to really, impress some people and make LSU's defense one of the better ones in recent memory. Now I think they're living up to that bill, but you got a side of the fan base or a side of the people that are at least reacting to this that are confused and that are concerned and wondering, is LSU worth it? Are we going to be able to make it? And how legitimate of a playoff contender are you? This is happening. Well, let me just be devil's advocate. I think if LSU's offense came out and killed the defense, then the opinion and the takeaways and all the comments would be that the defense is still not up to par. So there's always a negative that you can take away from a spring game. There's always a negative. A positive that I will take away from this is I feel like the chemistry and the amount of weaponry that you got, it can only get better. The chemistry specifically, it's only going to get better. It's not going to get worse. If you look at the pieces that Garrett Nussmeier had the most success to, Chris Hilton, Aaron Anderson, Zay Thomas, Trudez Green, all returning people. I mean, you got some studs that he needs to develop chemistry with, but it's expected. Nick Anderson, Barian Brown, Destin Hill, who didn't even play. There's a lot of people that had just arrived, great talent, going to be a great season, but you've got a lot of time to gel together. And it's not saying they don't have chemistry. Yeah, they got chemistry. But the connection, the ability to be able to find them, ability to be able to be comfortable with them in a game time situation, I think that's going to be what they work on through fall. And you only work on that through getting, more reps together and continuously practicing together. I will say Chris Hilton, he looked like a damn wide receiver one. I think that connection has grown entirely. They didn't have the whole season to be able to work on it, obviously. But with what they've been able to do, with how the season ended last year, with how it's starting this year for Chris Hilton, it looks like he's going to be a big key player in that spot as well. That wide receiver room is loaded, though. Absolutely loaded. Kyle Parker got active and made some big catches. I think he could be somebody that could potentially make some noise as well. Got a lot of names. And I think LSU is going to be able to find them out pretty soon. If you've got any questions, comments, concerns, drop them in the chat. Hit that like button. Let's go ahead and hit H-Town Creole. Good morning, man. Good to see you. Never understood why JJ was given a chance as a freshman to play quarterback after breaking most offensive record yards in the state. Yeah, you saying you never understood why he was or why he wasn't? Because it seems like you might have said wasn't. But, I mean, he's a good talent. And that record, I think, is what stands out to a lot of people. I think the record, whenever I heard that he was making the switch to running back initially, kind of made sense. You can kind of see the clear, connection here. The quarterback one kind of confused me a little bit just because a running back to quarterback, especially DB to running back to quarterback, it's never happened in my time of watching college football, at least. But I think now you kind of get to put him in a spot where I think he'll better LSU as a whole. He'll still be able to get used. He'll still see the field, and he won't just be sitting down waiting for an opportunity. Let's talk about this Nico situation. I'm sure everybody saw this develop in college football. And if you didn't, I'll recap it here really, really quickly. He demanded more money from Tennessee, straight up. They said no. He was getting paid roughly $2 million. He tried to get it to $4 million. Head coach Josh Heupel comes out and pretty much prevents a college football meltdown. He says that they've decided to move on from him. It's a power decision, not trying to have any focus be on one specific person. It's trying to be on the whole team. And he was just talking about how, we're not going to sacrifice the brand for one small piece of the puzzle. If this happened, if Nico got the money and Tennessee caved in, I'd imagine this would probably start happening like wildfire all over the country. And I'm not ruling it out to start happening. I know that it got denied and that there's not a lot of steam here. And I'm probably sure that the next person to ask will get denied as well. But the seed theoretically has been planted. I'm glad that it hasn't been able to been, getting taken and ran with for a mile. But Josh Heupel, I think, he potentially slowed down the transformation of college football. Just talk about NIL and the switch from 2021 to now. It's been 4 years and college football is completely different. If things like this started to happen, holdouts and all these different leverage negotiation tactics, you're going to see college football change exponentially faster. It ain't going to take 4 years. It might take another year or two, and then boom, it looks completely different than it already does. I think this could be way quicker and way worse long-term for everybody. There's a variety of things. I'll break it down for you. First, the thing is going to be the price of the quarterback just went up for everybody. If you pay Nico $4 million, who he didn't even have the greatest season. I mean, we got some stats to break it down for you. In the SEC, he ranked 6th in completions, 7th in touchdowns, 8th in passing yards. It could have been a lot better, right? That's a mid-level SEC quarterback. So my point is, how much is high level? How much would a Garrett Nussmeier be worth? How much would a DJ Lagway be worth? An Arch Manning be worth? How much would those pieces be if Nico and a Carson Beck and all these different, quarterbacks are getting the $4 million to play as the way they're playing? That's one of the biggest, adjustments that college football would have saw. The price would have shot up for every single quarterback across the nation. Then I think you have more quarterbacks follow suit, or just potentially more big players follow suit, trying to get their worth, trying to get their right, accurate price. You piss off a lot of people in that program too. It sends a clear message on what's the important focus. All the players, all the coaches, all the alumni, all the fans, everybody knows who is the most important player in the eyes of Tennessee. So, I mean, that message, you got to be real careful what kind of messages you're sending to your team, your fan base, your overall community. I feel like that it's indicative of the entire culture of the team. And I mean, Josh Heupel stood on business here, and I think he made the right decision. So Nico, he entered the portal, can't go anywhere inside the SEC. We got someone in the chat, Nola Rogers, shout out to him, asking SEC transfer, notify the next school before February if you're eligible for fall sports. He's not going to be able to transfer inside the conference. There's a new rule, so he's going to have to pick somewhere outside the SEC. But the question is, why would somebody even want to take him? And I get it. There's talent. People might have holes in their team, and they might need to take a shot on the quarterback and take a stab on Nico. But This, I think, creates a lot of confusion, creates a lot of worry. A lot of people are questioning, the overall commitment that he has to a program. And he's not a bad kid. He's not even a horrible player, right? He didn't have a great season, but he's an average player who can get better. I think he got some terrible advice, and I think it's going to happen for a few years in college football. You got all kind of agents here ready for the biggest payday that they could potentially get because of all these NIL deals and transfer portal checks that are getting cut. And if you have one good season, somebody's going to be in your ear trying to get you to go get the biggest bag possible and back the Brinks truck up to the crib. I mean, there's been a variety of situations that you could talk about. The most prevalent one, I feel like, will be Bryce Underwood. But, I mean, these situations are going to continuously happen with people trying to get huge bags and completely change the framework of what was college football recruiting. I'm not sure how you fix this. I think even if you approve the NCAA versus House settlement, I think even if you get regulations in, even if you start rev sharing, even if you have a clearinghouse that looks at all these deals, they're still going to find a way. There's been a way. It was illegal 10 years ago to pay for players. Guess what? It was still happening. If you think that it wasn't happening, then I'll keep the fairy tale belief for you. But there's always going to be a way for people to save millions of dollars. There's one thing about businesses like this and sectors like this. When they have a lot of money rolling in, they're not going to want to mess up a good thing. They're not going to want to divvy up more than what they have to. They're not going to want to be in a situation where they're going to mess up their product. It's going to be interesting because you can't just cut NIL. That's not going to stop. And with the rev share, I feel like, you're going to potentially see a lot of loopholes here. Because if you get a fair market tag on one player at this worth, then you can just give them that worth multiple times and try to fly under the radar. Nolan Rogers asking what is the new NCAA rule or new SEC rule. You can't, in this second spring portal window, hop in and transfer interconference. So if you're an SEC player like Nico, you can't go from Tennessee to Bama or Georgia or LSU. They're not letting you go to the SEC right now. He's going to have to go to a different conference. He'll probably go Big Ten or, somewhere. I believe he's from California, so I would put my money on a West Coast squad if I was, looking at this. But all in all, I do think players should get paid. I'm not going to lie. But there's some distractions that are starting to happen. 100% players deserve to get money. But do players deserve to throw off everybody's, season and everybody's hopes? Because Tennessee's entire trajectory, they were, fourth to win the SEC? That's going to change a lot. That's going to change a lot. Now you're in a situation where you don't got a quarterback and everybody around you is in shambles, and this just exponentially made things a lot worse for Tennessee. So I wanted to break that down here. Let's talk about LSU baseball. Ball. LSU baseball. Come on. Got swept on the road. That ain't what you wanted. Auburn's been having a hell of a run. They went 2 out of 3 against Bama. 3 out of 3 against LSU. They're getting it done. Friday, LSU lost 8-4. Auburn got 13 hits, scored 6 runs in the first 5. Cade Anderson gave up 5 earned runs through 4 innings. LSU tried to rally in the 7th, pushed 3 runs, wasn't enough. Jared Jones had a 2-run shot that was able to bring some people in, but Auburn obviously held on. Saturday, Auburn 4-2. Stephen Milam with a solo homer to try to give LSU an early lead. Auburn responded, and LSU. They tried to go on a run again in the 8th inning. LSU's bullpen held Auburn scoreless over the final 4, but the offense just couldn't get anything going. Sunday, very similar. 3-2, LSU, L. Auburn scored all 3 runs in the first 2 innings. So for 7 innings, Auburn was radio silent. LSU still could only muster 2 runs. The series sweep at this point, I feel like it could be a blessing in disguise, right? I mean, yeah, you want to win every series. You never want to see your team go 0-3 on the road against an opponent that you could potentially be seeing again. But there's a value in it happening at this point in the season. There's a value in it happening now rather than right before the NCAA tournament. At least now you can learn, try to regroup. They didn't have a horrible performance. On Saturday and Sunday, they were potentially able to, make something work. They were potentially able to go on a run and try to come back to Baton Rouge and win. Obviously, it didn't happen, but LSU baseball is in a spot where the rankings might slide them a little bit. They're still a top 10 team, probably a top 5 team overall, regardless of what D1 baseball says. And they're just going to have to keep stacking days. You learn from moments like this. Not everything's going to go your way. Sometimes you just got to know how to respond to it. LSU baseball, I believe I believe in them. I think that this has been one of their best starts to the season. Just got to get kicked in the butt every now and then to get motivated. This has been the Verdict. We're going to hop out of here, head to class. Y'all hit that thumbs up on our stream. Comment anything you want us to talk about. We will be at practice tomorrow. We got practice on Tuesday. We got practice on Thursday. Last 2 practices. Wednesday, we'll be going live at 9 a.m. That's when the final transfer portal window opens for the spring. I'm sure we'll see Nico move into that and, potentially tip his hand on where he's going. We'll see Tennessee grab their quarterback. Hopefully LSU don't have a lot of additions into that portal, a lot of departures. But we'll be monitoring it. We'll be keeping up with it as per usual. This has been the Verdict. Hope everybody has a good day. Hit that thumbs up. And rest in peace, Kyron Lacy. Y'all have a good one.